Ladies and gentlemen, the Odyssey has been out for nearly a month now, and no matter what you think of the movie, I think we can all agree that my man Odysseus went through some shit. Personally, I thought the movie was amazing, but moving on to more pressing matters. While watching the Odyssey, it got me thinking, who else could survive this treacherous journey and overcome the obstacles from the wrath of the gods? So today, we will be ranking our favourite heroes on whether they survived the Odyssey voyage, specifically the journey from Christopher Nolan's movie. I'll also put the trials on the right here next to the tier so you can reference it throughout the video in case you don't know what went down or forgot, and low-key I'll probably forget if I don't put them there. I'll be basing my rankings on what these characters have shown they can do and extrapolating what they could do while also giving my opinions. Now let's go over the tiers. No chance. 100 times out of 100 they get pulverized by the hand of God. Maybe they overcome one of the trials, but that's pushing it. It would be a waste of time to even prepare for the voyage. They might as well pack their suitcases with summer clothes ready for Hades. Would need a miracle. There is a sliver of hope on this tier. They could overcome a couple trials, but 99 times out of 100 they're on a one-way trip to meet their hero Achilles. Overcomes a few trials. Do they make it to the end? Probably not, but they have a better chance. Their crew perishes, but they make a commendable effort and overcome the majority of trials. Barely survives, missing crew. This is where our hero Odysseus lands. He survives by the skin of his teeth. Despite this, he overcomes all the trials through combat expertise, intelligence, and strategic and tactical prowess. However, he is unable to bring his crew with him. Clean sweep. Self-explanatory. The Odyssey Journey is just another Tuesday. They survive and bring their crew with them. And before I rank, one last thing I promise. Let's lay out some assumptions. 1. They all committed the sin of the Trojan horse tactic, which in turn upset the gods. 2. They have only the tools that Odysseus and his men had. Sorry Luke, no lightsaber. 3. But they retain their innate abilities and skills. Okay, let's not waste any more time. The Wizard of Oz gang. Dorothy, Toto, the Scarecrow, the Tin Man, and the Cowardly Lion. God damn, they'll be put in a pack by the Sirens. The Sirens would literally be like, hey yo, Scarecrow, you get a brain, Tin Man, you get a heart, and Cowardly Lion, you get courage. As for you, Dorothy, you get to go back to Kansas with Toto. And boom, next thing they know, they're in front row seats in Hades. They've also been shown to fail the temptation test when they fell for the allure of the poppy seeds that put them to sleep so they would succumb to the lotus, and if not, then eating the cattle or falling for Circe. But give credit where credit is due. They showed resilience, teamwork, and fortitude. They beat the Wicked Witch, but only with the help of Glinda, but unfortunately, they have no chance in the voyage. Indiana Jones. A professor of archaeology who specializes in ancient mythology. This is a man who was born and bred for this. We can assume he knows what he's in for, so he'll make the right strategic choices like Odysseus did, i.e. choosing the Scylla, the monster, over the whirlpool and blinding the Cyclops. As for the Lastrygonians, chasing him and throwing boulders, come on now, he was built for this. Circe is his weakness. He gets drugged in Temple of Doom and needs Short Round to save him. It's a back and forth on this one if he finds his way through or gets saved by a crew member, but you can make an argument either way. I would put him somewhere between overcomes a few trials and barely survives. I'll put him here for now, but on the upper end. The Losers Club. Bill, Richie, Beverly, Ben, Eddie, Stan, and Mike. Each of them bringing something to the table that allowed them to defeat the ancient demon It. It took a lot of skill and overcoming fear to achieve this, but It let his guard down by underestimating them to focus on scaring them to make them more delicious rather than just killing them straight away. Unfortunately, the Cyclops and Lastrygonians will not toy with them. To the Cyclops, they are fresh, juicy meat. Don't get me wrong, they're witty and can think on their feet, so I see a scenario where they escape it, but I can see them losing to the Sirens or Circe, especially with how emotionally sensitive they are given their upbringing. One whisper that Georgie could be brought back to life would send Bill over the edge. And let's say they all make it to the suitor dinner. They're inexperienced in combat and would get slaughtered. Overall, I'll say they'll need a miracle. Luke Skywalker. Come on, man. Luke Skywalker, even without his lightsaber, dog walks this journey. His saber skills would translate to sword fighting skills, so any combat related task would be a cakewalk. It wouldn't even get to that though, as he wields the Force. He can lift a boulder if he was trapped inside the Cyclops' lair. He could force push the Lastrygonians away and prevent boulders from destroying the ship. He can communicate across vast distances and sense emotions and intentions, so he would know Circe was a threat as well as the Nymph and the Lotus Eaters. Temptation and manipulation would be negligible to Luke as he is a trained Jedi Master. I would go as far as to even say he could sail past the sirens without even blocking his ears and still resist them. Overall, he survives until the very end and brings his crew with him safe and sound. Captain Jack Sparrow.
He's the GOAT! The GOAT!
What has this man not accomplished? Jack Sparrow brings with him high cunning intelligence, witty improvisation, and master swordsmanship, along with his canny luck and unmatched ability to talk his way out of impossible situations. He gave up an offer of immortality to save Will Turner, so the sirens shouldn't be an issue. His silver tongue would also let him talk his way out with Cersei, as we see him demonstrate the same with Calypso and Angelica. Trickery and tactics are the staple of Jack Sparrow, so I can see him slithering his way past the Cyclops and Lastrygonians, but not at the expense of losing his crew. Some blockers I could see would be the cattle of Helios and the nymph/lotus eaters. He's always been into treasure, rum, or shiny things. I could see him indulging in the cattle as he doesn't quite have the discipline or restraint of Indiana Jones, and he doesn't really have a reason to go home, so might be stuck with the nymph. But given his ability to adapt and navigate difficult situations, I wouldn't put it past him to escape, and with that reason he comfortably sits on Barely Survives' missing crew. Wesley from The Princess Bride. Nothing can stop true love, as the saying goes, but how does Wesley from The Princess Bride hold up against the wrath of gods? At first I had him in would need a miracle, but after some thought I think he can overcome a few trials. As far as swordsmanship comes, he's one of the best and even beats Inigo Montoya. He can wrestle a giant and outwit Vizzini in a pure intelligence and tactics challenge. He navigates the fire swamp and survives torture, and that's as close as it comes to training for the Odyssey. Yes, the Cyclops and Lastrygonians are different gravy compared to his fights, but I'll put him in overcome a few trials, happy to debate in the comments. The Goonies. Do you know what's stronger than the power of friendship? The crippling grip of the Cyclops and the corrosive acidity of its stomach acid. Sir Dunk and Egg. Everyone's favourite duo, the clumsy brute force of Dunk paired with the cunningness of Egg. Dunk won the trial of 7, outfighting 7 armed to seasoned knights in single combat, so the suitor slaughter would be a cakewalk for him. The Cyclops also works the same way. Egg comes up with the idea to blind it and Dunk executes. As for Cersei and the Sirens, we know Dunk as a character that refuses bribes and sticks to his code and honour even when it costs him. Egg's the same, a prince travelling in disguise who never once cashes in on his own status for comfort. Two people who've already proven they don't take the easy, tempting way out. However, what they've been through has been small, personal scale conflicts such as political intrigue, tourneys, feuds, and single combat. There's no version of Dunk and Egg surviving something like the Lastrygonians or Scylla. I can see them thinking on their feet well, but they are untested against pure, indiscriminate chaos and the wrath of the gods, so they go in, survives a few trials. Rick, Evelyn, and Jonathan from The Mummy. I would pay many amounts of fine British currency to see this trio again, let alone for them to take on the Odyssey voyage. Rick is him, a former French Foreign Legion soldier who goes hand to hand with an invincible mummy and an immortal dragon emperor. Evelyn's the scholarly angle, same lane as Indiana Jones. She's the one who reads the Book of the Dead and the Book of Amun-Ra, translating ancient text and incantations under pressure to actually solve the problem rather than just fight it. Her knowledge would provide great insight into the journey and provide crucial decision-making skills under pressure when necessary. The trio's already survived a city enslaved into a zombie-like mob, a plague of flies and boils, a plane crash in the middle of the desert. Did they go through this by the skin of their teeth though? Yes, but they always managed to circumnavigate whatever they encounter. The Cyclops and Lastrygonians are no different to what they've faced. I would even wager the resurrected Emperor Han was a bigger issue. An immortal warlord commanding a full terracotta army pursuing them across the Himalayas while also fighting Yetis. Yeah, this will be another Tuesday for them. Would they survive? Yes, but it would be a hell of a scrap and Jonathan's goofy ass would eat the cattle on the island, so overall, barely survive, missing crew. Mario and Luigi. Now this is a unique one. Both possess incredible abilities such as exceptional jumping height, wall jumping, and have the ability to lift and hurl a frickin' dragon turtle. Also, look at this bullshit article talking about, actually, Mario would lose his arms trying to throw Bowser according to science. Yeah, and according to science, it was impossible to run a sub 4-minute mile, and here we have over 2,000 people that have done it. Boo-hoo, Mario is that guy, and I'm not tolerating slander. But I raised the question, in this world of myths and magic, are there magic mushrooms and plants during this journey? Well, it wouldn't be far-fetched to say there would be, with all the other magical aspects that this world already has. So with that being said, if Mario and Luigi can wield fire and ice, grow stronger, or even become a frickin' penguin from items they find in the world, then it's a clean sweep. But if we negate those things, then they still survive, but it would be a scrap. So with that being said, they fall into the top level with mushrooms and then barely survive without. Frodo and Samwise. No, they don't have the ring, and no, that doesn't stop this badass duo from conquering several trials. They are the definition of peak endurance, traversing 1,200 miles on foot over 6 months, much of it on starvation rations to get to Mount Doom. Sam goes band for band with Shelob, an ancient, monstrous spider demon, and wins. He also fights through armed orcs single-handedly to pull Frodo out of captivity. Restraint wise, there's no greed in either of them anywhere in the story. Cat of Helios isn't a threat here. Frodo does wrestle back and forth with the ring but ultimately overcomes it. And their reason to go home is as powerful as it gets on the list, the Shire, so Lotus Eaters shouldn't get a grip on them either. Where things get shaky is that without the ring we've got zero evidence either way on resisting a purely magical temptation like Cersei or the Sirens. And it may be a struggle against the Scylla and the Lastrygonians, so I'll put them in between barely survives and overcomes a few trials. Nick Cage from National Treasure. If there's anyone willing to take on a challenge, it's Nick frickin' Cage. In this movie, he's a doctor in history, specialising in archaeology and cryptology. Similar in terms of knowledge base to Indy and Evelyn, but we don't see extensive combat experience nor any indicators that would let me extrapolate. He'll do well, but he would need a damn miracle to get through a majority of the trials, let alone the full journey. And finally, Finn and Jake from Adventure Time. No one's topping these bad boys. They took down the Lich, a near omnicidal, death manipulating entity that was the single greatest threat in the entire universe. As for the journey, Jake is the real MVP. He can shapeshift and stretch at will, so he can grow to the size of a cyclops and fight it, or flatten himself to slip past a trap. He would also be able to stretch across an entire strait to close the gap on Scylla and the whirlpool without anyone touching the water or harden into a weapon mid-fight. There isn't a single trial on this list built to contain someone who can just change what he physically is in response to the problem in front of him. And Finn's the cherry on top, a trained swordsman with telekinesis abilities along with fire and ice manipulation, and he's tanked having both legs broken without it slowing him at all. There's no version of the Cyclops, the Suit of Slaughter, or Scylla and the Whirlpool that challenges characters who've already gone toe to toe with a death god. Easy, clean sweep. Alright muchachos, that's the list. Don't forget to slap that subscribe button if you enjoyed this video. Remember, it's all fictional, but I'm still curious to hear what you think. Who do you think could have made it to the end and who couldn't? Doesn't even have to be from this list. Just let me know in the comments. Peace.